All right, welcome to our product differentiation and market development working group presentation. And this group was led by Leanne Thompson, and a bunch of us. It will come up, I guess, on the slide shortly, won't it, Leanne? Contributed. And it was a pretty broad-ranging mandate, but I think Leanne and George managed to narrow it down and give us some interesting stuff to sink our teeth into. So, and as many of you may know, Leanne is also the chair of our M&P committee. And so this is a very appropriate, M&P being marketing and promotions. So this was a very appropriate working group for her to lead. And just as a reminder, as we start out tonight, we'll please keep our interactions in the chat and otherwise civil and above board, because we're all here to learn something from Maple. And with that, I will turn it over to Leanne.
Thanks, John. So I'm going to try sharing my screen. Okay, so can everybody just confirm that everybody can see that?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Confirm.
So as John mentioned, we were tasked with looking at product differentiation and market development under this working group. So the working group structured the presentation into 3 sections, which we could to go over now. There's the context, which we would give you the background of what we're doing and how it fits into the strategic planning process. The analysis of our branding and market opportunities available to OMSPA. And then we would move into recommendations, which we would summarize our key findings that we found and present suggested next steps. So John circulated the slide deck earlier this week, so I hope that you've had a chance to review it. And I'll just bring your attention to our working group. It was made up of OMSPA members, so it's supporting the whole strategic planning process. And if you've attended webinars before tonight, this might be similar. You might be familiar to you. So our group met at the beginning of the year. We paused during SERP season, and then we regrouped at the beginning of April, and we're here to present our findings. So our members were myself, Chad Jakeman, Michelle Sage, Sean Murray, Jake Carrick, Tony Tamore, Nelson McLaughlin, and we were supported by Frank Herkins, Randall Goodfellow, John Williams, and George Brooks. So a very diverse group of OMSPA members and producers. And I thank all of them for their time that they put towards meeting and the experience that they brought and feedback to the group. So right now, I'll just quickly go over the group's mandate. And this came out, this is how we were directed to what we were looking at. So we were asked to explore how to differentiate our Ontario maple products from other sources. For example, create an Ontario style maple syrup and maple products. We were asked to explore, based on this differentiation, what means could be developed so members could receive a higher return per unit of sales on both maple syrup and maple products. We were asked to explore whether the market cares and is prepared to pay a premium for differentiated maple syrup. So we looked at different examples of that. We were asked to explore strategies that would help reach consumers who would maybe purchase premium price products based on example geography, age, ethno-demographics, and income. And we were also asked to look at complementary business activities such as agritourism or value-added products. So the traditional items or other options. So our group took this mandate and we met, and sorry, I'm trying to make sure I can see what you can see. So our group undertook the following in developing these recommendations. So we reviewed the current the OMSPA product differentiation marketing efforts to date. So that's like we looked at what we've done historically. We did a scan of what other jurisdictions are doing. So that included Quebec, New Brunswick, Vermont, and New York. We wanted to develop and understand the options that were available to OMSPA. And finally, to do an analysis, which was to in hopes of bringing specific recommendations to this strategic planning process. So we met, and then we had an opportunity to work with Robert Hocking, a food brand specialist, who made a presentation to OMSPA, and this was made available to all of the working group members, and it was attended quite, it was well attended. It was beyond just the marketing group that saw his presentation on the 14th of March. We are very grateful that he was able to provide us with this information, and you can see his presentation at the link provided here. So all of the links that are in this website, or sorry, in this slide deck are hot, so you should be able to click through and see his profile and also watch the presentation if you haven't had a chance to see it. It was really well done. I think the whole group learned a lot, and it brought a little bit of focus, or brought more focus, sorry, to how we would proceed with the process. So if you've attended other webinars, I think you may have seen this slide before. This is just explaining the strategic planning process that OMSPA is undertaking. So right now we're in phase one, which the 10 working groups have been working together with their mandates to bring together information and present it to the membership. The next phase will be membership engagement, which will happen over the next a couple months. And then finally, the strategic plan will be developed using input from phases 1 and phases 2. So why does OMSPA need product differentiation? So ultimately, differentiating Ontario maple syrup from generic maple syrup will be essential to any future branding initiative undertaken by OMSPA. And we have the opportunity to distinguish Ontario maple syrup based on a number of different potential factors. For example, we concluded they could be superior quality. It could be origin branding, so locally produced versus anonymous, undifferentiated production, unblended versus blended, but that might not be advantageous to all of our members. Terroir, higher bricks, enhanced traceability, and intangibles like our rich history, our story that we have to tell about Ontario maple production. So you can see there's a large number of ways that we could potentially differentiate our syrup from others. So developing markets for Ontario maple syrup is fundamentally about increasing profitability and sustainability of our producer packers and other maple syrup members in our association. So it's not only about driving increased consumption, but it's also about influencing consumers to choose Ontario maple syrup. And that would allow us to have significant growth opportunities for our producers and resulting in premium price charge per unit, increasing in producer profitability. So that's ultimately what we're talking about when we're talking about product differentiation. So then we talked about market development. So it could be done two different ways: a product push, which is I have something to sell, please buy it, or market pull, where it's I want to buy something, where can I get it? So historically, OMSPA's marketing efforts have tended to be product push. And one of the initial tasks of developing our branding strategy would be to explore which of these strategies most effectively serves our members. So we took the opportunity to look at the different marketing and branding activities that OMSPA has done in recent years. In 2014, the Sweet Ontario brand was developed and registered. We had a market study done with segments and a scan of the grocery with Foodland. It was very thorough and still has many valid ideas in the report. Further back, 2011 was the OMSPA seal of quality, which allowed producers use of the OMSPA logo and was inspection-based and quality-focused. Producer number was on the label with the OMSPA logo, and it was ultimately dropped as it was cost prohibitive, but it was quality-focused and also used for marketing. So a continuation from the previous slide, prior to 2011, our focus was on the store. So trinket marketing to promote maple, like fridge magnets, booklets, it was separate and run by a contract. I think the theme was a taste of spring all year long. The contract took stock to information days and workshops, so there was outreach to our members. And the Royal Winter was also a large priority with syrup sales there, and that ended as other producers moved in, and has the OMSPA focus has turned from selling syrup to an education booth. The OMSPA jugs also need to be noted. So that was started in 2004. And it was to bring a consistent look. It helps with marketing, but also as a fundraiser for the association and for research. So our current marketing activities, Maple Weekend and Fall in Love with Maple, our product pushes, it benefits the retail sales chain. 50 to 100 members are partaking, fewer more recently because of COVID restrictions. It requires a significant amount of volunteer work and budget, and it's focused primarily on rural and small town market and already selling to the converted consumer. We have the coloring books, songbooks, and cookbooks, which can be used, if used in schools, may create some pull for maple syrup in general, but maybe not necessarily Ontario maple syrup. And there's benefits for retails if people sell it, and there's some retail benefits, sorry. People sell it and they can get a margin. Participation in agricultural events such as the Royal Winter Fair, Breakfast on the Farm, International Plowing Match, focusing primarily on consumer education. We have active social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, promoting maple syrup in any events that are taking place. And we also maintain a consumer-focused website, primarily used to promote Ontario maple syrup to consumers. So the next thing we did was we took a look at what other jurisdictions were doing. So the working group identified Vermont as a jurisdiction of relevance in our review. So like us, Vermont is a small producer compared to Quebec, but is seeing success in establishing a premium brand for their syrup. So there's a report that's linked on this slide that talks about the consumer analysis that was completed to help understand the marketing opportunities for producers in Vermont. And the report concludes that Vermont's efforts to differentiate their syrup based on quality have been successful, with consumers perceiving Vermont maple syrup to be a superior quality to other maple syrups. And the statistics provided in that report are 60% of consumers surveyed were willing to pay a premium for syrup from Vermont, and roughly 50% of consumers preferred to know the state or province of origin for their products. So then we took a look at Quebec, and it has the dominant marketing position both in Canada and internationally. And there's a significant amount of federal funding. Again, there's a report that's linked here, and it provides a detailed overview of just how large the Quebec marketing efforts are in development in other areas, focusing sales in Quebec, in Canada, the US, Japan, UK, and Germany. And of note, pages 29 and 30 in this report talks about a pretty involved campaign in 2021 in Ontario promoting maple syrup. So we've identified that there's a lot of, sources of data about Ontario maple syrup that we need to be aware of. So within OMSPA, There's the production survey, which you would see annually, that comes from the office asking about various items like pricing, the sales channels you use, the value added products that you make, and how you advertise. There's market scan done by OMSPA staff and volunteers that could be done on a regular basis. And that would be looking at a set of locations, just doing our own research of what is out in things like grocery stores, online, packers, bulk buyers, maple auctions, just to understand the market. Foodland Ontario provides us, can provide us with a grocery market scan. So they monitor 1,300 stores across Ontario, and they can do a scan and provide us with the data, looking at things like pricing, shelf space, placement, the brands that are there. And it helps us get an understanding of what SERP's available for sale in those stores and where Ontario SERP fits in. So the last one was done in 2014, and there's another one underway right now. OMAFRA and Statistics Canada both keep basic market data, and it's available to us. Market research companies would happily help us develop doing detailed analysis, but the cost of that is likely $25,000 or more. But it would be needed for in-depth analysis. And finally, IMSI has research available that is US-based, but that could help guide us. One thing to note is that other maple syrup associations, this was found as part of the OMSPA data working group, that there is market data available in other jurisdictions within North America, but the general sentiment is that most jurisdictions have limited or incomplete data. So we do know that the most extensive market data available is in Quebec, and given that that is developed with federal funding, it's likely that it could be shared with us in Ontario. And one thing we noted was, given that the state of maple syrup market data is so underdeveloped, if OMSPA can develop a robust understanding of the Ontario market, it would be a competitive advantage to us over other jurisdictions. So data is important. Here you'll find a list of all of these reports that we're talking about and the reports that the working group reviewed during our process. So John has set up a Google Drive, which is listed in this slide. And if you go there, all of the reports are available for your review and reading pleasure. And then there's some that are linked directly to their websites. Now we move on to the opportunity. So a number of market trends converge to support the suggestion that there's an opportunity to create a unique brand for Ontario maple syrup. So this is feedback we got from the Robert Hocking presentation, and it includes things like eroding loyalty to major brands, making room for growth from smaller players. There's a bigger choice in transparency in sales channels, and consumers no longer have this limited choice of people they can buy from. And consumers today are more connected and have more options than so they're able to connect with what their preferred brand is more easily than before. So we talked about we looked at the challenges in carving out this brand that we said would be beneficial to us. So one item, the first part is, does the market care where maple syrup comes from? So it is a broadly loved category, but it's historically been pretty generic to the consumer. It's marketed as largely undifferentiated. And that works great for people like for the Quebec market who dominate the category. So some statistics that we have from 2014 include that 80% of Ontario households consume maple syrup. 60% of what's consumed in Ontario comes from outside. 85% of syrup produced in Ontario is sold directly to the consumer, and 11% of stores surveyed in Ontario carry Ontario maple syrup. So we acknowledge that there has been more of a movement to some locally produced, like a locally produced movement. So that data from 2014 might need to be updated, but it gave us a snapshot of where we're at in terms of how Ontario fits into that market. Another challenge is that consumers are increasingly difficult to influence. So the modern consumer is not paying attention. They generally avoid advertising. They're paying less attention in retail environments, and they tend not to read product labels. So this is, again, feedback from the Robert Hocking presentation, and he is a food branding specialist. So this was important, something important that we wanted to make sure we captured. Number 3 is that budgetary challenges. It's unlikely to be, like, the additional challenge for OMSPA is that there's unlikely to be a large budget for brand and marketing initiative. And to date, external funding will be essential, and this funding is likely to be limited. So brand building requires consistent effort over time, and the challenges in securing market resources beyond the first few years was a primary limiter to the previous Sweet Ontario initiative. So we have the study from 2014, has great points in it, but it needs a budget in order to sustain that. So that we wanted to make sure we included that financing is a challenge. And finally, we need to have member buy-in from the OMSPA membership. So it will not succeed no matter how well resourced if it's not supported by the membership. So the membership buy-in must be addressed head on in any branding strategy. The group talked about different ways to link different mechanism to unite the member producers under the Sweet Ontario brand. And some ideas that were put forward was like a seal tape over the cap, which would just have high visible placement of the OMSPA brand, incorporating grading, a batch code that maybe incorporated the OMSPA producer number as well. So we had some discussions about what would work to make sure the members support the look and feel of this OMSPA brand. So those are just 2 different ideas that were put forward. So now we're moving on to the proposed solution. So going back to Robert Hocking, his recommendation based on experience is a comprehensive OMSPA branding strategy focused on authenticity, creating engagement with target demographics around the deep history and tradition of Ontario maple syrup, coupled with product differentiation based on quality and origin branding. So we want to acknowledge that tradition of Ontario maple syrup and focus on quality and buy local. Given that consumers are now avoiding advertising and not paying full attention to retail environments, a key component of the branding strategy would be to identify the channels that would be most effective in influencing consumer preference. So one of the items that the recommendation is to have a primary focus on channels like social media, given that consumers are spending up to 6 hours a day on those platforms. And the proposed solution would prominently feature authentic storytelling, capturing the magic around the history and tradition of Ontario producers. He also suggested that traditional advertising would not be of a high value strategy for OMSPA, given the anticipated budget constraints. So the recommendation was to identify narrow consumer bands that could be effectively influenced, as opposed to just advertising to everyone and hoping that there's some movement everywhere. So the process to develop and executing a brand strategy would involve 3 phases. The first one being exploration, data gathering, and strategy development, then innovation and scenario planning, and finally team composition and execution. So we will look at the next couple slides that would explain how we would go about developing a brand strategy. This slide speaks to the first phase being essential to collect essential data, answer questions, challenge the validity of our marketing assumptions, and then draft an integrated marketing strategy. So we would look at things like stakeholder and commercial requirements, reviewing key channels for marketing, what works, what isn't, the realities of the volumes we can sustain, review of available market and consumer research, develop ideal archetypes, need states, and buyer journeys. So that would be the actual who, why, and how consumers and channel would find our products. Formulate an integrated marketing strategy to support premiumization. So how are we going to, like, a strategy that would get that premium price for our members? And develop key messages and messaging hierarchy, which means that it requires us to develop consistent messaging across all platforms. The second phase would be to consider undertaking design thinking programs. So that is having us, seeks for us to understand our users, challenge our assumptions, redefine our problems, figuring out what explores new products, channels, partnerships. The end result of this phase would be an enhanced and strengthened strategic plan and featuring innovative approaches and solutions that have been tested and refined. So just taking the information that we gather and just really looking at identifying strategies and solutions that are not instant, like that just, we're assuming some things. So like, let's challenge those and understand if those stand when tested. So phase 3 involves pulling together an on-demand team needed to execute this branding and marketing strategy. So that would include people like writers, designers, videographers. The composition of the team would be based on what the strategy or how the strategy is developed. It would involve, we really looked at the do, measure, evaluate, and improve. So set targets, see if we're meeting them, and if not, make adjustments. So the proposed marketing and branding strategy would answer a number of important questions that we identified, like what type of demand would benefit our members? Is it market push, where we're persuading retailers and wholesalers to change who they carry, or market pull, where the consumers are demanding that Ontario maple syrup? How do members' preferences align with the OMSPA branding strategy? What are realistic goals for a comprehensive branding strategy in the market? And how valid are our existing assumptions about the market? We say locally produced is a marketing advantage, but is it? So it's looking at those things and fleshing it out and knowing that it has an impact and value for our members. We'll look at who buys Ontario maple syrup, how that market is segmented, and which parts of those markets are most promising for OMSPA. What channels are most effective at reaching these target markets? What is the member journey? What avenues deliver the best return on investment? How will OMSPA drive buy-in within the membership for a multi-year branding and marketing strategy? That would be important. And how do we measure success? So we looked at what markets can Ontario impact. Quebec dominates the national and international marketing or maple syrup markets. National and international marketing of Canadian maple syrup is done through the Roundtable, which OMSPA has a seat at, but Quebec primarily controls. We benefit from the Roundtable's national and international marketing efforts and cannot match the resources being invested. So the recommendation is OMSPA should focus on the Ontario market first. After Ontario, the working group feels near US international markets would be the next logical target market. And the three sales channel that OMSPA can address is in its provincial and regional marketing are retail, wholesale, and bulk. OMSPA can, without a doubt, positively influence retail and wholesale sales in Ontario and regionally. And with the bulk price on maple syrup set by Quebec, there was a question and a discussion about whether OMSPA and Ontario producers can influence provincial bulk sales. And it was clear within our discussions that if Ontario can differentiate its maple syrup with enhanced quality, large bottlers and distributors will preferentially prefer Ontario bulk syrup. So to summarize the key findings from for our working group was branding and market development is crucial to the future financial success of OMSPA members. There's an opportunity for OMSPA to develop a unique brand for Ontario maple syrup. This requires carefully thought out product differentiation, and it will be essential to developing a successful Ontario maple syrup brand. There'll be challenges to moving the needle in a meaningful way, and that needs to be understood, acknowledged, and addressed head on, including the challenge of securing broad membership buy-in. OMSPA does not have the required expertise within its membership to develop a comprehensive marketing and branding strategy, and would need to bring on board professional food branding expertise to work closely with the OMSPA's Marketing and Promotions Committee. And this has follow-on implications around the need to secure funding for an initiative. This branding strategy initiative should be regarded as updating and revisiting the Sweet Ontario campaign from 2014-2015, taking care to capture and build on the value that has already been built. And the keys to success, there's three factors that we'd like to highlight. Effective brand development requires consistent investment and effort over an extended period of time. It requires significant investment in organizational culture, being OMSPA's culture. So brand is behavior. And it is essential to establish clear, realistic performance goals at the beginning with continual measurement against milestones. So the recommendation is developing a data-driven, evidence-based branding strategy that establishes clear, measurable goals. And that's fundamental to a successful branding campaign. So we speak specifically to our relationship with Quebec's marketing efforts. And as we spoke about earlier in the meeting, we benefit directly from the national and international marketing efforts taken by the National Roundtable and cannot match those resources being invested. And as such, OMSPA should not focus on national and international marketing in the foreseeable future, and care should be taken to avoid any negative branding of competitors or generic maple syrup, even though there's an opportunity to differentiate our syrup based on quality. And as a general statement, OMSPA's branding and marketing development efforts should align with, but not compete, and not compete with the Roundtable's efforts. Okay, so next steps would be for the OMSPA board to formally approve the development of a comprehensive branding strategy and task M&P with this initiative. The committee would flesh out what a comprehensive branding strategy entails, identify funding targets, and develop a funding proposal to secure the required funds. With funding in place, the committee would then secure professional expertise with deep experience in food product branding. And working close with this professional, the committee develops a comprehensive OMSPA branding strategy, revisiting the previous work done in 2014. With the fully developed branding strategy in hand, OMSPA secures funding to execute a multi-year branding campaign, and then the campaign is launched. So we note that at the outset, it might be necessary to recruit more members to the M&P committee to find the skill sets necessary to successfully realize this expanded mandate, and that concurrent member communication will be, or communication to the membership will be essential to ensure there's good member buy-in. And thank you all for listening. I'm sorry I can't see you, so I hope you're all still there. The product differentiation marketing development impacts all of us. And if you have any questions, we welcome your comments now and or later if something comes up, you can speak with John. So I see so there's some things in the chat. I can look at those. Okay. Okay,
Jules.
so that might just be some, I'm just seeing how, Jules, you were talking about the previous presentation from Bob Snyder. So I think that that's key to what is important here is that, you know, these 10 working groups are finding things out that all, you know, speak to each other and are important from the onset. You know, we were talking about quality and what role that would play from differentiation. And I think it's, you know, everybody's driving the bus towards the strategic plan. And when it converges and we all get an opportunity to see what everybody else has found out, it'll be really neat to see how this comes together to move forward, because one working group might learn something that has relevance to others.
So if I may, it's Ray. This is excellent, and so well done, Leanne. Congratulations. And we've talked a lot about, from the 2014 strategy, the Sweet Ontario strategy, and the entire document, an opportunity to review, and you know, we need to welcome that and review its functionality, its effectiveness, and then what do we adjust and course correct, if you wish, to meet the demands of today. And I got thinking as you were going through about the age group, but that would be analyzed, right, as we go through an analysis of that. You know, did we target the age group, which was the 21 to 39-year-olds, to hit that 25% of the segment of society that we're not, according to the consultant, we're not purchasing Ontario SERP just because of lack of awareness, and our social media side, you know, move that needle. I think so awesome work, and look forward to in the deliberations or in any discussion, and anybody can pipe in. Did you think about, or not think about, did you explore in a preliminary way where we could access funding to do the analysis work and a sort of a rethink or a revitalization of that strategy? Is there any outlets? Did you come across anything? It may be premature, and if you can't answer it, that's fine, but did anything come up?
Nothing obvious, I don't think. That you know, like Foodland's doing some, they do some work for us in general, yeah, for free, which is nice, and it might also, for us being more aware and put it into our cycle to be, you know, following up with them and seeing where it fits in. But we haven't seen anything for sure, but we're always looking for money.
Sure. Okay.
Right. Just as a supplement comment to that question is that we need to have come to this point in our realization of what we need to do, and that we need to raise funding to be able to get our stuff together to approach somebody. And that's included in the next steps here.
I'm with you. Okay, thank you.
There is one possibility that we've already partially tapped into. That's grassroots marketing through OMSPA. Right. And we did get a 10,000 plus 10 from us, so 20,000 from them this year. But that allows, I think right now that grant allows for up to $100,000 over several years. So it's possible as we proceed that we may be able to apply to that and get a good chunk of these funds.
Well, you're right, and it's building the compelling case, right? Which is what the background does, and which is why it's so important. And to whoever a potential funder is, says, here's a compelling case, and we've got, we already have an organization that, compared to other jurisdictions, except Quebec, has a fairly high membership fee compared to others. If you went to Ohio and, these little places, they've got virtually nothing, but it's still not enough to do today's world on a grand scale.
Well, yeah, even that one is like a 50-50, right? So
yeah,
it'd be great if we could get $100,000, but we have to come up with 50,000.
I understand,
right? So,
totally.
Yeah.
Understand totally. So
Well, that is the ultimate objective, is to be prepared. And all these steps here now is getting us in the mode of being prepared to get very serious about funding, because you can't do it $10,000 at a time once a year.
No.
This is a significant undertaking, and it's part of the next steps of work is that very much sourcing out those funds.
Well, can you imagine if something falls into our lap and is appropriate, and we've got this in our back pocket, right? Like,
no, exactly.
Ooh, here you
Exactly.
go.
Yeah, it's a shelf ready, we used to call it in government, and it's important to have that and to market that, right? To push that out there. And there may be, other cap funding, right? That larger program that'll pop up. If you make a compelling enough case, as people are going to listen.
Yeah, it's, as you remember, and we've talked about it in other webinars, has come up, is that we're currently in the process of that consultation between the province and the federal government about the next round of funding, and having read quite closely what they really seemed like they wanted, marketing was really high on the list.
Yeah, good.
To support farm organizations. And so, it's not announced yet. But the thing is, I know where they're heading based upon the type of questions of information they were trying to get out of us. So we're better prepared now than we were before.
Well, and especially as a smaller commodity group, and there's a lot of them out there, is that, again, a compelling argument to say, yes, we're not big, but we can be. We have the resources, we have the know-how, we have the trees, and what we need is some help.
Yeah.
So there's a question in the chat from Robert McEwen, and this is about Vermont maple syrup, and if the sale of maple syrup is regulated in Vermont. We've seen an explosion of backyard maple syrup producers in Ontario, partly because of COVID, but it's already growing, and it may be a challenge to market our product based on quality when we have many small producers that don't belong to OMSPA. And one complaint about quality goes a long way. So I don't think we really looked at it here, but maybe other working groups did.
Yeah, I can help a bit.
Thank
there.
you.
So Vermont, has a regulation, and they also have extended, believe it or not, they actually regulated McDonald's to in the month of March, I think, can only use maple sugar in their restaurants in Vermont. If I stand corrected on that. But it's
real maple, you mean, right?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
Wow.
It's kind of invasive, but they pulled it off. I don't know if it was a one shot, but they where was I going? They have adopted a certification program based on our manual, by the way. Interesting. And so the state is trying to literally certify and regulate producers as you are authorized to market Vermont pure maple syrup because you meet the standards in this manual. So it's a quasi regulatory item. That's they're taking their time with it, but they get a certification which gives them an up in sales. So do we call that regulation? I'm not sure of the nuances. We could always check, but
yeah. The question I think, Leanne, you asked back to us, maybe this is going to be covered in other working groups reports. There's been a lot of deliberation on this and discussion about this in the ensuring product product quality and food safety.
Mhm.
And also in the work that was done on the SCAN working group, which compared what different jurisdictions were doing from so many different perspectives, including this whole area of certification, quality control, marketing. So those will be revealed, not just revealed, those will be presented, I should say, in the next few weeks. And so, yes, there's a lot of dovetailing here. And so you've been, your group has been benefactor. Some of the work was done in the other groups and vice versa. Yeah.
Okay, so that, excellent. And Jules, you asked if we considered both official languages in the analysis. So do you mean? So
For the client side, being close to the Quebec border, many of us have to, we do have like a lot of francophones coming in. So I thought, you know, if you didn't, that's okay. It's just like for marketing purposes. I don't care about the producers. It's more for marketing purposes, you know, customers coming in.
So I don't think we looked specifically at any demographic, like we looked at the resources that, the reports that were available to us. So like we looked at the Quebec one, like it had some demographic. I don't know if I'm understanding.
No, it's just for the, it's for the branding and the marketing purposes. Let's say when OMSPA is gonna go out and, you know, like
Yeah, I
when
think-
we're gonna get out, like
Do
we've
it
got the-
bilingually, you mean, Jules?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that it's kind of at the board level right now that those initiatives are, right? Like we're starting to do that already with some of our marketing.
Yeah,
So I think that it would align with our corporate approach.
One of the
whatever
key
we're doing.
One of the key messages here is that we need professional help, i.e. those who are really deep and steeped in branding and marketing, et cetera. And I would say that that's something to be incorporated in that process, because we need the professional help to do it properly. And it's called for within the recommended
Unknown
steps.
caller.
It's called for within the recommended steps, Jules. So we'll take your comment as an advice to make sure that when we can afford professional help, make sure that's included in there. That query, that question.
So it's David here. I have a question. So Ontario has the Sweet Ontario brand. So what does Quebec have for a branding name, and Vermont? Like, I understand they're quite large maple syrup provinces and states.
So a
they,
lot of, oh, sorry, go on, Jules.
they have the, if you ever watch, like, anyway, you're Leanne, I'm stunned with some of the findings about people not watching TV anymore. So it makes me feel old. But if you watch some of the TV, Dave, and because I'm so close to it, being francophone also, they got this thing, this l'érable du Québec or l'érable du Canada, or they've also translated it. So, and they've taken ownership of, like, they're the
maple.
Yeah, it's really hurting me when I see that, because in Ontario, I don't think we're included in that thing. It's the golden maple, and they've got l'érable du Québec and the maple of Quebec. So they've got that all over. If you go on their website, you'll see it. It's just straight all over. They've started this about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. Leanne, carry on. That's what I've seen.
Well, in
Yeah, so
Quebec,
it's-
in Quebec as well, they get a lot of federal money to do Canadian advertising internationally. But most frequently, here's the bottle. It's turned to the French side of the bottle. Let's put it that way. And you'll see it out there. So they by their size, they've created themselves. They are the maple, and it's by their size. Whereas in Vermont, it's Vermont maple syrup, and they advertise the hell out of that, and it has become the preferred maple syrup in the United States.
Yes.
Sorry,
So
Leanne.
no, it's okay. So to answer David's question, Vermont is origin based. They're talking about Vermont maple syrup, where Quebec is, because it's so federally funded, it is maple in Canada, I think. So if you to go to that Maple in Canada website. It's very well
Right.
done. It's bilingual, beautiful recipes. But if you dive down into the About Us, it's definitely the Quebec
Mhm.
Association.
So we
But-
did a lot of pushing the three other provinces at the roundtable, where even internationally, Quebec, was pro-Creole and said, we want to have CERP from Quebec. But if you're in Germany or UK or South Korea, you don't know where Quebec is. And so we argued for years and actually convinced the chair that we needed to brand CERP from Canada more aggressively than CERP from Quebec. And they've followed suit. And that Ontario camp, so back to the Ontario campaign that happened, and I followed it closely, that was close to $300,000 of social media marketing over a period of 3 weeks or 4 weeks in the fall in Ontario, actually helped us greatly because it focused on CERP from Canada, and knowing that a large percentage of the CERP, retail CERP consumed in Ontario originates from Quebec, wherever they get it from, New Brunswick, and they get some from Ontario, believe it or not, across and then back across. But that was a positive thing, and I supported that as as most folks know, I'm OMSPA's rep on the roundtable, and supported that as a positive thing to do, and I think it helped our Ontario market greatly.
Yeah, they have a fun Maple in Canada UK, where it's literally an
Right.
Instagram account that is attached to chefs and promoting
Right.
maple as an ingredient
Yeah.
to the UK market. So they are developing that, but
And I can give you figures. Well, I've shared the figures
Yeah.
with the executive on the work that we've been doing across the pond, and it's hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars. So yeah.
Yeah, I think though, as we dig down into what the recommendations are, is that Ontario should not go and try to blow our brains out doing an international or
No.
national program. Let Quebec do that, and if it pulls Ontario CERP into the marketplace, fantastic.
Right.
But let's own our own market with a differentiated product. I think is what the recommendations are, and
Yeah.
we'll check that assumption as
With you.
we get into it more and more, right? So. I see that Chad Jakeman's on here, who has done a fair bit of assessment of marketplaces and how to get in the markets and whatever else. And it was, of course, a member of the working group. Is there any insights, Chad, you might want to share? You don't have to, but if you want to. Well, I said he didn't have to. Maybe that meant that he won't. So.
put him on the spot. That's
He's maybe watching the hockey game,
They can't be cheering for Toronto.
if there is one.
They don't exist anymore.
So, David, did we answer your question?
Yeah, no, I was just curious.
Are there any other questions or comments from the group tonight?
Leanne, John, actually, my first question was about the social media. Yeah, John touched what I was trying to put down, is that, social media is the way. Our report showed that I'm going to put my video on so you can see me, so more expression here. Yeah, so social media not being one of our priority as members. I'm myself trying to push some of it down in my end, and I'm not finding any interest. So it's going to be interesting. I just don't know how to say this, but pushing this to our members about being the thing. I can't wait to see. I'd like to see it happening.
Jules, my response to you was that the social media is focused at our marketplace or demographics that will be identified. Of
Yeah,
those who want,
agree.
we want to influence the buy it, i.e. those prepared to pay a higher money prices for higher quality product or our differentiated product. And so that's that social media aspect of it.
No, I agree. I agree with what you had down.
Yeah.
I guess we're moving along. It's we're discovering. Yeah, I like it.
I called on Chad earlier to ask or comment And I see that his face is on the screen
I
now.
thought I missed something, so I came running back. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, it was that you're on the working group and you've been involved in the market studies and trying to enter new marketplaces. Is there anything that you'd like to add? Or you don't have to, but I just thought.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I honestly, after hearing some of this stuff, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean that we have to have some sort of long-term goals, and it can't be like, sporadic where we have some money and spend it right away, and it needs to be something continuous and constant. And I mean, social media is good because it's inexpensive for the most part, but there needs to be sort of a long-term, like how we do it. I don't know if I'm not perfect at this or anything. No one really is, but I mean, we have a schedule planned out on different events and stuff like that you can kind of go based on, and you can do it relatively inexpensively. But I do want to touch on the point of, Ontario maple syrup is really growing within stores in Ontario. I mean, I know I saw David Wagler on here too. He can attest to that as well. I mean, there's a lot more listings with Ontario brands, and it's not just myself and his brand or anything. There's also Dutchman's Gold. There's other packers and stuff like that. So I mean, that study that was done in 2014, I don't think is a representative of what's out there right now. There's local vendor programs with many different vendors in different regions for all top 3 major grocery chains in Ontario. So I mean, I think here at home it's really growing. I think and my side, I see an issue with supply. So I mean, with marketing, it comes to, I mean, I get it. I mean, we want to get more for the money that is for the product that we're making. But on my side, I see, I want to make sure that there's a good amount of supply so that when I push Ontario maple syrup, that I know that there's going to be a crop there that I can sell. But this year's been really good. And we're growing quite quickly, and we have the benefit of there's 40% of the population in Ontario, which allows that whole local movement that's throughout North America. No matter where you are, everyone's about buy local. We just happen to be in the province that has 40% of the population here. So I mean, it's really the low-hanging fruit is sell Ontario maple syrup to Ontarians, and I think it's being done really well from a lot of different companies, and but how OMSPA can do better, I think I don't know. I mean, we look at social media and all that stuff, but I mean, there's budget constraints. So I mean, we got to be really creative in what we do, and yeah, that's all I have to add, I guess.
It'll be interesting to see the updated scan on the stores when we get that,
Yes.
which we should have. Hopefully, we'll have it by the summer tour. And but yeah, I think you're right. Like, what was it? I think they said 11% at that point of stores. That's
in
pretty low.
2014.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah.
In 2014, I can definitely see that was probably the
Yeah.
case, right?
It's probably closer to 100 now, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I would be actually, that's a good point. I would be very surprised if it wasn't like really close to 100%.
Yeah.
I guess then the question is, how do we make the best benefit from that recognition, to make sure that we have the syrup that people want and appreciate the whole story of it.
Well, I think that's a good point too. I mean, a cohesive kind of marketing kind of thing for Ontario maple syrup versus, I don't know, I'm selling my syrup, and I mean, like just some sort of tagline. I know we have Sweet Ontario, but I mean, I don't know if there's anything attached to that we could also kind of all promote at once.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying about the supply, this is why, this approach of 10 working groups, the integrated, everybody looking at the different items like quality and tree tapping and accessibility, all of that I think is important, because there's no use launching a huge campaign to promote it if we can't supply it, or we're supplying poor quality syrup. So that integrated approach is, I think, key to moving this forward for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Leanne, just a point. I guess whenever we've got our melatonin level verification tool to to verify the body level in the syrup. Maybe a good marketing tool would be to actually put it on, because we try not to resell body syrup in Ontario. Just something to add to your marketing thing, compared to other, provinces who probably will not put it on. You understand?
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's lots of opportunity. Ultimately, finding out that group of consumers who are going to serve, buy the differentiated product, and if that's a factor
Mhm.
in a differentiated product and that has value to them, that returns to the membership, then it for sure it's something that we want to highlight. So yeah, I think doing the research and getting the data for us to understand, because sometimes we'd be sitting in the meetings and I'd be like, well, I don't know if that's true for me, but two things can be true at once, right? So somebody else's experience, your experience selling syrup could be completely different than my experience selling syrup and my consumers, but we could be both selling syrup. So it's finding that demographic, the sales channel, all of those factors that are going to augment Ontario maple syrup, broadly speaking, for the overall benefit of the membership. So I'm excited. I'm grateful that you all listened to me drone on for that long. It was a long slide deck. It was more talking than I do most days. So I appreciate you sticking to it. Any last
It was a great
calls?
job, Leanne. It's a great job, Leanne, and thank you and your committee for all your hard work. I apologize, I got kicked off on the last 10 minutes of the thing, but I will have to catch that on when John puts on the site. So
I've been listening to them on my drive, so.
Don't fall asleep while you're driving.
No, it's great. You can't do it as a podcast, but you can YouTube and drive, so they're wonderful. So you can catch the last 10 minutes that way.
I just wanted to, there's one slide that had the word terroir on it, and I'm not sure maybe everybody understands terroir, but it really talks about where the origin of something comes from how the climate and soil has affected the flavor of the product. And that is mostly used, but not exclusively used, in the wine industry. And we're actually having conversations now with a sommelier that puts on events. It would want to put on an event on appreciation of maple from a terroir perspective. So that can even get to a more differentiated product beyond just a differentiated product, in a sense, really reaching the foodie audience, etc. So there's some really keen and interesting things. And I know that's going to be included in the summer tour of 2023, sommelier. Anyways, but in between now and then, it's something to think about, because consumers who want to get beyond just saying, well, it's maple syrup and it's from Ontario, but they say, oh my goodness, that stuff from the Canadian Shield is great, and here's the stuff from some clay land, and it's good. And why do I like one versus the other? They're both amber, whatever. And so that's even a more specific market, but we have interest in that. So
just quickly, I emphasized done a considerable amount of homework and actually joined that association that's looking at everything from Parmesan cheese to wine from certain regions of France, and belonging and actually patenting those names like Champagne and Beaujolais, those type of things. So talk to us. It's it can be a very difficult, slippery slope. Not that it's not cool to do. Everybody's going to say, well, my syrup's better because I'm on this this wonderful granite, or I'm on this wonderful clay loam, and I'm on this wonderful everything else. So we've done some homework, and we've actually pulled back from that initiative.
It's not about whether it's better. It's being able to have the consumers say why they prefer something, and understand that. That's mostly education.
Yeah, it's deeper than that. So I just provide that insight that we've got some experience talking about it, so we can talk offline.
Sure.
Well, unless there's any further comments, I think we can wrap it up. And in a couple of days, I'll have this posted up on our YouTube channel. And also just a reminder that we will be having another webinar next Thursday. And I believe, Randall, we're going to do the data group.
Yes,
And I think it's going to be me that gets to do all the talking on that one. So, I'll be circulating information about that in the next few days and get this recording up. Anything else to add, anyone?
on the data group, it's a matter of saying, what do we need to know? Is some of that available? And where is it? And where are the gaps? And so there's a strategy to help fill gaps to help make decisions easier and better, and so we can manage our association. So that's what the data group's about.
Thanks, Randall. Okay, thanks so much, Leanne.
Thank you all for
You're off the hot
Thanks,
seat.
Leanne.
your help.
And,
Yeah.
and not to be too bold, John, you can always start off next week by singing happy birthday, okay?
All right,
Oh,
yes.
Some people are big on their birthdays.
We'll have cake in your honor.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, good night, everybody.
All right,
All right,
Leanne,
thank you.
thank
Night,
you for a
everybody.
great job. And
Yeah, great work, Leanne. Yeah.
Good night. Well, thanks for all your help, everyone. I appreciate it.
take care. Great job. Great job.
I'm glad you had to present it and not me. So that.
Well,
Yeah.
I should have assigned some to you next time. I'll know better.
No.
Hey,
I'm
Split
you
it
know what?
up.
I did it here. You can do something at the summer tour. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
All right, bye now.
Jesus, Chad, she wanted to get me to do it, and I ran for the hills.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Well, we'll see you on our OMSPA bingo card if the children are in bed when I go home. So if not,
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll be calling this meeting back to order, guys.
yeah, that's right. You're in the sugar house. So
Yeah, I could be here all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a great night. Thanks so
All
much.
right,
Okay,
take care.
good
Good
night.
night, everyone.